Alright, let's start with properly our investigation, quote-unquote,
Time for Talion's. Sorry.
at the base of the Black Gate.
It's time for Talion's Merry Day.
Well, as much as you can get it in Mordor. Like I said, this is in a time where Sauron was still reforming his essence, so by extension also the Nazgûls are out of the picture because they were defeated alongside me in Dol Guldur at this point. Don't worry, we will actually see them eventually.
Man, the orcs really are just really good at causing trouble. Though,
if you forgot, the orcs at this point, they instead of reproducing normally, they're actually, being actually created in vats in large quantities. That's also why there's always a replenishment event that the Men of Gondor cannot actually stop for the time being. Although it's worth noting that both these and the sequel actually do make an attempt, not necessarily to humanize the orcs, but to make them actually more complex. To actually, instead of being just, mindless books without personalities or outside of their captains, again, thanks also to the Nemesis system, you can get an idea what their hierarchy is. It's just a different culture that they had, but they're still bent on evil and serving Sauron.
Very interesting.
All right, let's actually find this particular captain.
Well, this doesn't bode well. Don't see. The prisoner created a distraction.
Yeah, you will quickly also find out that this wraith, it's not like he doesn't give too much of a shit about the humans, but would prefer if Talion was actually more pragmatic and, took advantage of situations instead of focusing on also helping other humans. Right. So, similar to the Arkham games, we also have a similar thing to detective mode.
Yep. I was actually wondering, when you switch to the Ghost, is his interaction with the world more or less similar to how our hero here does?
Yes, it's identical. The idea behind it, remember, is that Talion and the Ghost share the same body, but the enemies, for all intents and purposes, only see Talion. So even when you tap into the Wraith Ward and you look like the Ghost, the enemies only still see Talion when you get down to it.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, is that it seems like the orcs specifically wanted this to happen, at least at the start, or not so much the orcs, the
sacrifice and wanted the elf to show up, but we don't know the details just yet. That's another thing that we'll eventually learn on the way.
If it comes back, we'll kill it then.
Also, each mission, similar to the Assassin's Creed games, instead, each mission has a side objectives that, when completed, actually net you more experience points. So you have an incentive actually to perform them, but you're not required to actually, having to be lenient towards them.
How complex are the stealth mechanics in this game? Like, do mooks react to dead bodies or something?
It's a pretty standard Metal Gear stuff that also the Arkham games did. The mooks patrol the areas. They do have a genuinely decent enough, autonomy when it comes to their AI. Some of them will just stay up, for example, like the archers. But as a general rule, as usual, the higher ground is always your friend. Hold on.
Also, I know this came out before the more recent Hitman games, but is it going to be like because you can't do kills in this game that look like accidents? Because in those games, if
yes,
you throw someone off,
while not in the same complexity of the Hitman games, you actually can.
Because in the recent ones, if you just throw someone off a really high building, but without killing them beforehand, I mean, they obviously die after you do that. But when someone notices, they'll just treat it as an accident.
Yeah, so you can do that.
However, if you kill them first, then throw them off a building, and someone notices it, they'll recognize, oh shit, this guy was killed.
Yeah, so
before he got thrown off.
That actually also happened here. There we go. It's also important how the captain actually dies, because it's still also randomly generated the way Talion actually finishes off the captains. But as a general rule of thumb, cutting the head always works, because if Talion actually kills them in a more simple way, like say a stab, there is actually a possibility for that captain to come back with the injury patch later on and ambush you by surprise. It's not super common, but it can happen.
So like in Resident Evil the remake, always get the head off.
Unfortunately,
Dom,
like I
what are
said,
you doing here?
This is all about family, guys.
So you didn't die 10 years ago.
So yeah, Talion actually knows this guy who's always made Travis Willingham.
Captain,
Boy, we've really got the all-stars here.
Or the
Troy
usuals,
Baker, Nolan North, apparently Sam Rigo,
We'll
and
have to wait for the
Travis.
next game for Laura Bailey, though.
Black Hand is Sauron.
Sorry, Pedro.
Well, I ran away from him. You know this man. Of course. You're staring at him.
So yeah, this guy actually was the slave that actually managed to escape the Black Hand.
Do you even know?
What luck?
Perhaps. This is no time to keep secrets.
Sounds
Well,
like
can't they
Travis is
get-
using kind of a gruffer version of his Thor voice.
Are you sure Alexis Tipton is not in this game?
My scouts.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Alas, though.
Okay.
I checked. She's not here either.
For the record, for those.
Tipton.
Well,
That one looked familiar.
I'll explain in a moment, Joe. Hold on.
Oh.
Gollum.
No. Someone wants to be seen. We should tread with caution.
Well, I don't blame you because the movies did not show it, but Gollum also has an experience with Rangers because in the 60-year time, Aragorn tried to stalk him. No, I don't care about the Sword of the Mode, sorry. Aragorn tried to stalk Gollum, but never managed to catch him. So,
Sort of
That was a
road
thing that
hides
happened.
in the shadows.
Basically, Alexis Tipton is basically the go-to Laura Bailey sound-alike.
Yeah.
here plays Triple Concrete.
Laura Bailey herself appointed her to be the new voice of Trunks in
I
DB.
forgot if she replaced her also as Chun-Li.
Find them then.
Wait, Laura Bailey
no,
did Trunks?
no.
I did not know that.
Hold on.
Okay, a check Street Fighter 6's cast listed, no.
Anyway, in order to find that mysterious creature, you have to follow their trails.
Okay.
Well, I see that they're not taking too long to get to, of course, one of the staples of Lord of the Rings media, that being interactions with Gollum, because...
No,
Pretty
dude, what are you
much-
talking about? It's the mysterious creature.
Okay, basically, in case you didn't know, almost every bout of media Lord of the Rings was that takes place, before the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, will have, at the very least, a mention of Gollum, if not an outright interaction with the guy.
As also explained in the books and the movie, it kind of makes sense because after the ring was stolen from him by Bilbo, Gollum searched throughout the entirety of Middle-earth, scouring east and west, to actually find information, and that meant multiple visits to Mordor as well. And again, 60-year time, it kind of makes sense that he would have been, in so many different places.
Yep.
Ironic that this man who literally had nothing but a scrap of clothing would become a scourge of Mordor.
As
in a
also
sense.
seen by the trailers also for the games that by the time we're recording is actually about to come out. Again, it's all about stealth and not being made visible by others, including the orcs. Yes, Pedro?
Basically, Jova, she was young Trunks in the Boo Saga, basically. Basically, during the early to mid 2000s, she was a Dragon Ball regular. She played young Chi-Chi in OG Dragon Ball. However, ever since she became, at this point, she doesn't even do Storm Princess anymore. So at this point, she's exclusively a video game actress, not even.
Although, like she has like reprised roles for some
Fruit
anime
Basket,
recently,
as
like
you
the recent
mentioned.
Fruit Basket.
Yeah, that, and I was about to get that as well. The one major exception is recently in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, instead of getting Alexis Tipton, they did get Laura Bailey back to reprise her role as young Trunks, because she does video games only now. So if in Kakarot is a video game, so they were able to get OG Trunks back at least.
Why they didn't get her back as Chi-Chi as well?
So, well, remember, Kakarot covers the Z series, and young Chi-Chi is not in the Z series.
How could a rodent possibly...
Because she only voiced young Chi-Chi from OG Dragon Ball, not adult Chi-Chi.
But yeah, the ghost also feels that the mysterious creature might be able to perceive him somehow.
Jeez, is this mysterious creature Spider-Man? He sure can climb fast.
Well, yeah, he can. Remember, that guy lived in a cave in the middle of the Misty Mountains. In the Misty Mountains.
The basic gist of the job is that after Laura Bailey stopped working with Funimation, Alexis Tipton was her self-appointed, her designated successor. She still voices Young Trunks to this day in any Dragon Ball Super episodes.
Actually, Pedro, Alexis Tipton's also in Kakarot.
Oh, is she? I heard
Who
that
is
she was also.
voicing that?
Still Kid Trunks.
Oh, still. I remember hearing somewhere that Laura Bailey returned for that.
Also,
Okay, never
some
mind
of the
then.
Uruks can be found
Ignore me
actually
then.
pissing. No pissing allowed.
Well, that's
Damn.
some. Well, I guess that's on brand.
Like I said, the AI actually moves in patterns to do
Sure,
different kind of
sure.
activities.
No pissing. Also,
It's,
pissing will be punishable by death.
It was somewhere around. It was somewhere around the early 2010s, Jova, when Alexis Tipton basically became. A good example is how Tales of Zestiria has a character that's perfect material for Laura Bailey, but since by that point she had moved on to more high-budget things, Alexis Tipton voiced that character in Zestiria. So.
Since she went on a higher budget things, I wonder if video game roles have paid better for her if she's not really doing like...
Yeah,
heard
she's
there
not
was
even
also
doing
the
Swan
whole-
Princess anymore.
There was also the union thing that happened with the strike for the voice actors.
Well, Laura Bailey recently came back for the recent Yu Yu Hakusho OVA.
Sure.
Did she voice Wotan?
Pretty sure she's Keiko.
Okay,
Keiko
then.
Yukimura, it says here.
I'm not used with the English cast to begin
Sure,
with.
sure.
So
Nowadays, like.
watch this.
Sorry.
Literally one by one, and they don't fucking notice.
Okay.
Sir, am I hearing our colleague screaming, Peter?
There we go.
How much?
The stupidest orcs ever.
Well, to be fair, orcs and intelligent go about together as well as mud and
But
Some of
even
these can
even so.
some of these actually, Jova, that statement can backfire you in the ass if you're not careful. Some of these orcs can
True.
get very, very smart.
That is
Mhm.
true, and I guess that's one thing I gotta give credit to The Hobbit. They did show us how an orc actually can be smarter.
You probably, like, I don't know if you saw that, but you probably know Alexis better as Kaguya from Love is War.
Well, that's a bit of a pickle.
Oh, it's just a little bug.
Well, no, it's first of all.
Well, okay, it's a big
I was
bug, but at
about
least...
to mention about the different type of footprints. So let's see where they lead. This, an artifact.
Don't touch it. Oh shit, now he's cursed.
I mean, he's already kind of cursed, so...
Well, this is not the
what's
One
one
Ring.
more?
Now he's been blown
It
up.
triggers a flashback of sorts.
Looks like he was blown up.
Oh,
Or
who
that's
knows,
for another
though?
time.
What manner of spell is this? A lost heirloom, Talion. You remember? A few broken images, yes.
It would seem our ghost companion has amnesia.
Hmm.
Your family was perhaps
He also had a family that maybe was actually killed. Hey,
Man, it's actually it's actually very common in fiction, though, for spirits not to remember how they died.
Fuck.
Oh,
A Caragor.
there.
Essentially a wargup on steroids.
Huh. It looks like a chubbier version of the werewolves from The Order.
No, it's actually more built. More,
Sure.
But
It's actually a
yeah,
lot.
they're
Sorry. I'm gone.
they're essentially overgrown wolves.
Oh, hey, Gollum.
Gone, why?
It's actually very common within fiction for spirits not to remember how they died. Like the world, hell, the World Ends With You does that with the characters being dead and not remembering how they died. Don't worry, that's not a spoiler. This happens literally like in the first half hour.
A lot of mystery, potential mystery, supernatural elements can happen to have you playing as a ghost and actually having to trace back
Yeah,
to your
murdered soul
life.
suspect. Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Like so that's actually very common for ghosts to have amnesia.
yep.
I get the idea, but the appeal also it combines also the aspect of a traditional noir detective kind of stuff with a more supernatural element. So I can see also the, you know, this type
appeal.
of creativity.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, the classic dodge roll
There we
maneuver.
go.
Cowardly creature lurks around here somewhere.
Like I said, most of the gameplay is actually taken off for Batman Arkham, which includes also the dodge attacks that are unavoidable with X.
But like, okay, even before Batman, it seemed like the go-to maneuver for a dodge was definitely dodge roll, to the point where that is such a heavily used
Alright,
move
let's
in
see if
Kingdom
we can
Hearts,
actually
it's
have a more
memeable.
civil discussion. Unfortunately, it's not, Gollum is not voiced by Andy Serkis in this case, but Liam O'Brien, but he's almost unrecognizable. He actually does a decent enough impression to me.
Quiet. Quiet, precious.
Now, Gollum, don't do anything naughty.
Yoink!
Think you could sneak up on me so easily, eh?
Mordor hurts us!
He does sound a lot like Andy Serkis, to be fair.
Oh, but yeah, Gollum seems to be able to see the wraith.
Probably leftover effects from harboring the ring for so long.
But why would the ghost be attached to that? Ow. Always a biter.
What if the twist is that this ghost is actually Sauron? I mean, come on. That would be a pretty cool twist if it turns out the elf ghost you've been working with is Sauron.
We will see
That
what
used to be
happens
an
on
elf.
that. So yeah, one of our recurring story missions will actually have asked Gollum to find artifacts we can use to actually restore the memory of our amnesia elf.
I wonder why.
Do not wish to know who I am.
He literally beat his head. Like,
I will at the very least say that at the very least the whole picking up the pen thing, and at least this game has magic as its excuse for how this works, unlike Beyond Two Souls, where they
I
live.
will say this. Oh, God.
Well, in Beyond Two Souls you can literally read the memories of an object, like somehow.
but to be
You
fair,
know,
that's a common cliche when it comes to medium types. It's
You
just
know-
that David Cage fucked it up as usual.
You know, I wouldn't have minded it if that was Aiden's main ability. The problem is, like I said, Aiden is literally just the Swiss Army knife of MacGuffin abilities. He does what the plot or game needs him to do. No sense of logic or consistency.
All the hallmarks of bad writing. Go on to.
So yeah, tune in instead for the next part, where instead we go for a bit of a hunt for the artifacts of his region. I will take the time to showcase now instead of compiling them at the end. See ya.
See ya.